all of it comes down to the community we surround ourselves with. Trust and a network. They can be like fuel that can help you get where you want to go. But that is all step 2 stuff, because step 1 is you deciding where you want to go. And we back out here on the Daily Vedantic. I was reflecting on some of the best advice I ever got professionally. I was living in Cape Town, South Africa at the time. I went to get a coffee with this entrepreneur there. That I ended up, we didn't end up maintaining much of a friendship or relationship after this coffee, but something that our work was in totally different realms, but something that he said to me has stuck with me for the last 16 years. He said this. He said, James, the 2 most important things for anything you want to accomplish in life, the 2 most important things that can lead to everything else, 2 most important things are trust and a network. I have recounted this advice and what he said right after this at Harvard Business School, Stanford Business School, every conference for entrepreneurs, startups that I've ever been invited to speak at, because I've never heard anyone say this. Since then, I've never heard anyone touch on this, even get close to how beautifully brilliant this piece of advice was. He said, with trust and a network, you can get everything else. If you're building a company and you have trust and a network, that will lead to financing. Trust and network will refine the idea, will help the product get to a great place. Trust and network will help you recruit your co-founders, your first employees. Trust and a network. And he said, you'll never go wrong by investing in both of those. But, and here was a very critical, but he said, but one is worthless without the other. If you have trust and it's only your mom who trusts you, it's not going to be that helpful when you're trying to build a company. And this isn't just startup advice, but this was the context he gave me this bit of advice around. And he said, the opposite is just as true. If you have a network, but no one trusts you, let's say you went to Harvard Business School, but after a few months, people just stop trusting you. That network is more or less useless. Trust and a network, and you get everything else. It's a great piece of advice for career, for finding new friends, for so many aspects of life. And it is related to this old story that I've mentioned on the podcast before of these 2 followers that approached the Buddha and said, Buddha, what's most important? The Buddha, you, the Dharma, the teaching, or Sangha, which is community and truth specifically. Similar to the other Sanskrit word that you'd find for this called satsang. And as the story goes, without hesitation, the Buddha said Sangha. Community is most important. The community around you is more important than the teacher you might be listening to. It's more important than the most brilliant teaching that could have ever been laid down throughout humanity. Because to these followers of the Buddha, that's what the Dharma was. And yet, it is not as important as the community. That is so strange to our Western ears, because we grew up thinking, well, the teacher is the most important. Socrates is more important than anything he taught. Second to the concepts that he taught, I should understand and appreciate this teacher, right? Most of us know of Socrates. Very few of us have reflected on his teachings, but we know, okay, Socrates. That's the important thing to take away. If you can get around to it, maybe understand his concepts. Or you have these myths of lone geniuses that produce something amazing, a Steve Jobs type of reputation. And yet, I say myth because it's never a lone genius that creates these things. There's always a community of many geniuses coming together. But still, with that example of someone like Steve Jobs or Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, we think, okay, it's the person. Then it's their contribution. But we never really think about the community. If anything, the community is barely an afterthought. If you want to go study under an amazing professor at some great university, you think about that professor, you think about their work, what you're going to study, what you're going to learn. But you barely, if at all, think about the community of other students around you. And that is a stark contrast to this concept of satsang or sangha, true community. You see, it is the community, it is your network that fills all of the gaps, that refines, iron sharpens iron type of refinement, where if you are pursuing something like spiritual evolution, spiritual progress, having an entire community to help refine concepts that you might be misinterpreting, to help inspire you towards the spiritual development you seek, inspire you towards, wow, that person, the service that they provide to their community is so inspiring. That's what I want to do. Just someone waking up and devoting their time early in the morning at 4:30, 5 a.m., at 4 a.m. When someone does that and you hear that over, drinks after dinner, and they just mention that they do that each morning. The spark of elevation that comes, the spark of inspiration that comes from knowing that your friend, someone you know, does that, prioritizes their life in that way. Imagine if you have 4, 5, 20, 30 people in your life that similarly inspire you. In Silicon Valley, it was a daily occurrence that you'd have a friend that would raise X amount of money for the idea that they were pursuing, or every few weeks, a friend would sell their company or get some huge PR write-up and kind of move the goalpost on what you're aiming for, increase your ambition. That can be a really unhealthy community to be in. And there's shades of that in nearly every community, where there is this material pursuit and these ever-moving goalposts on what you're aiming for within your own material pursuit that then gets changed, influenced by false community. It might not even be the people near you. It might be the community that we surround ourselves with the media that we consume, the people we follow online, the books we read, the TV shows that we watch. All of that fills in the gaps, refines or numbs, dulls, or sharpens our pursuit, whatever that pursuit is. And it absolutely can shift that pursuit from this to that, from the higher to the lower, from the lower to the higher. All of it comes down to the community we surround ourselves with. This advice 16 years ago in this coffee shop of the two most important things to help you get what you want in life are trust and a network. And this advice from an entrepreneur that those two things can lead to everything else to help you get what you want in life. The oversight is that it assumes you already know what you want. It is a massive question mark. Massive question mark of, is what you're pursuing what you actually want? Those two inputs, trust and a network, they can be like fuel that can help you get where you want to go. But that is all step 2 stuff, because step 1 is you deciding where you want to go. And if you have a community that's convinced you to go to all of the wrong places, then no matter how much fuel you have, it won't correct that fundamental flaw in your plans. Trust and a network. It's so close to truth in community. But it's not truth in community. More important than trust, more important than your network, is the community that we choose. And the highest ideal we can orient ourselves around when it comes to community is to find and establish ourselves in a community in pursuit of truth. It's more important than the teaching. It's more important than the teacher. It's more important than where you're trying to go, because that community in truth will inspire you to go to the right places, to pursue truth itself. It is the GPS, whereas trust, network, any other resource out there might be the fuel to get you there faster. But that community in truth is the GPS that's constantly orienting you in the right direction, sometimes reorienting you, sometimes feeling like it's disorienting to you. But if you're establishing yourself daily in a community of truth, it could be reflecting on episodes like this. It could be joining the e-learning program that's linked in the show notes that I benefit in no way from. It's something that I've done 3 times. This 3-year course that has become invaluable in everything I do, from work to family life to this passion project of the Daily Vedantic itself. But establishing yourself in that community of truth. Books, shows, social media, the right foods, all of this is part of our satsang that we choose for ourselves. If you establish yourself in a community of truth, consumption of truth, it's this self-correcting, reorienting, directional guidance that undoubtedly gets you where you want to go. And along the way, you will have immense trust. You will have a network that you didn't even think about building. You'll be the rare individual that people are always inviting everything that they do, because you're such a light, such an inspiration. You are the ember of community of truth that they are seeking in their own lives. More important than trust in a network is the community in truth that you establish yourself in. And if you establish yourself in a community of truth, you will get everything that you ever wanted. And along the way, you'll actually find out what that is. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.